Hello there, I'm Dave Myers, and you're listening to Verse by Verse. We have a wonderful promise in 2 Corinthians 6, verse 18, where we read, and this is God speaking, "I will be a father to you, and you shall be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty." Imagine that. God Himself says He will be a father to us, and we can be His sons and daughters. If you've had the blessing of growing up in a good family with a loving dad, you know what a great promise God is making here to be our perfect father. And if you've had the handicap of growing up in a household without a good father, you can probably imagine what you would have liked in a father. Let's take a look at some of the traits we had or would like to have had in our physical father and compare them to our Father in heaven. A good father is loving. He knows when to wrap his arms around his son or daughter, to love them, to appreciate them, to encourage them. A good father is also loving in the sense of caring so much that he is willing to correct his child so the child can stay on or get back on the right track. A good father is dependable, involved, honest, compassionate. He sets a good example, treats others with respect. He listens. He's supportive and protective. And the list, of course, can go on and on. When we examine God, our Father, on each of these traits, He comes out at the top of the list with the best grade possible. He is the perfect Father. And to think He wants us as His kids is both amazing and humbling. But what does a loving father expect of his children? Is it just a one-way street where we expect Dad to be perfect, but with no responsibilities of our own? Well, of course not. In a family, we each have our responsibilities to carry out. I should note that in the previous verse, God tells me what He expects of me as His son. He says this, "Come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you." Then He says in verse 8, "I will be a father to you, and you shall be my sons and daughters." So, my loving Father expects me to toe the line, meaning to do what's expected of me. And in this case, He asks me to keep away from the things that He calls unclean and avoid them. So it's up to me to read His Word so that I can know what behavior, what attitudes, and even what foods He calls unclean. See the show notes for some ideas on where to start finding out what God labels as unclean. Now, you and I strive to be good kids. But even when we fall short as sons and daughters, we are very thankful that we have an amazing and kind and loving being who promises to always be there as our loving Father.
Verse by Verse is a companion podcast to the Daily Bible Verse blog, which you can find on the Life, Hope, and Truth Learning Center. Check out the show notes for more.